missed the last 2 games with a sore left knee. Chuck Person. And Person hits a 3. Spurs had missed 9 of their last 10 shots from the floor. And now Jess Kersey says the ball belongs to San Antonio.
A violation on the inbounds pass. There was terrific pressure put by Corey Alexander on Stockton. Stockton had to come all the way back, and they handed him the ball. That hand-to-hand exchange is not allowed.
First Utah turnover of the afternoon, 32-23. Jazz in the lead. This best-of-7 series tied at a game apiece. Chuck Person comes up short this time on the rebound to Adam Keefe. And the whistle blows, and this foul is going to be on Corey Alexander.
Chuck Person has been working very hard with Bob Hill on his jump shot in practice before the game. And Person has been playing fabulous ball for the Spurs. So much more of a factor this year in the playoffs than he was last year playing behind Dennis Rodman.
Ostertag.
It's like he just won the championship with that shot. He's supposed to act like he made that shot once or twice.
The rookie from Kansas exulted as the ball went through. Charles Smith.
Wild shot. Charles Smith has not been a productive player in this series.
The crowd boos every time Will Perdue touches the ball for his recent run-in with
Will
Karl
Perdue
Malone.
is one of those players that the crowd on the road will love to go after and hate, because he is one of those guys that Vinny Del Negro can't find the range. Will Perdue is one of those guys who will get in your face and mix it up, and he's been a very big contributor to Bob Hill's Spurs cause.
Perdue came into this game shooting 21 of 28 from the floor in the postseason. Ostertag.
Nice tip by Brian Russell.
And Jerry Sloan yelling at Greg Ostertag, not pleased at all with that shot. 9 minutes, 37 seconds left in the first half as we take time out here at the Delta Center. The Jazz leading San Antonio 34-23. You're watching the NBA on NBC. And welcome back, everyone. Greg Gumbel along with Bill Walton. Game 1 went to Utah in San Antonio by 20. San Antonio won Game 2 by 11. What's the key this afternoon?
Greg, with all the talk about rebounding and execution in the set offense, it's going to eventually come down to which superstar plays the best. Whether it's going to be Karl Malone or David Robinson, or it's going to be John Stockton versus Avery Johnson. The guys in those 2 matchups that come out ahead, that will determine this game and this series ultimately.
You see the advantage Karl Malone is enjoying right now. As far as points in the paint go, Utah dominates that statistic 18-8. Rebound off to the Jazz.
Adam Keefe, the Jazz's second leading rebounder in very few minutes on the season.
Keefe in and out of the lane, back outside the car, and Ostertag, you can bet he won't put another one up from outside for a while.
That was a heat check. He made one jumper. Come back and see how hot he is. And here's a guy that should shoot a lot more.
Ostertag got the rebound.
I think Brian Russell's playing far too conservatively on offense. Got a big game in Game 2 in San Antonio, 16 points off the bench.
Keefe hard across the lane, and Robinson, his second block of the afternoon.
Adam Keefe in Game 1 of this series. I thought he was trying to set a record for most shots blocked in a series. He's continuing to work on that, and Jess Kersey got a technical foul called against Bob Hill, who's got to do something to get this crowd out of the game. They are on the edge of their seats.
Well, that's not going to do it. Crowd loves that. John Stockton shooting 92% from the line in the postseason.
But psychologically, after a technical foul, the calls do tend to come back your way a little bit. And what Bob Hill is doing there, he's standing up for David Robinson. He's saying, hey, Adam Keefe is pushing his way, offensive fouls, getting through Robinson.
One of the major stories in this series has been the disparity in number of free throws. 53 free throws for the Spurs coming in here in this series to just 15 for Utah. And the foul is on Ostertag.
Jess Kersey on top of your screen. Oh, he's right up there in Kersey's face. Rod Thorne, Director of Operations for the NBA, in attendance today.
might say sitting within arm's reach, Bill. 8.5 to play in the first half. Avery Johnson down the lane.
Avery Johnson.
So Avery Johnson with his first basket of the afternoon. 37-25 Utah.
Stockton forced the double team, coming down to help on Robinson. Utah's made a decision that they're going to live with Avery Johnson's offense, which is significantly down from the regular season.
This is Carr with the shot clock at 6. Fakes twice and comes up short. Elliott with the save for Avery Johnson. Here he comes. Del Negro open and hit.
The defense by David Robinson starts the whole thing off. San Antonio starting to play better offensively, coexisting with Karl Malone going to the bench. They need a 45-minute per day out of Karl Malone. They're attacking David Robinson. Antoine Carr, though, never execute the shot you just faked. One of the cardinal rules of offensive basketball.
Stockton has it stripped down low. Shot clock at 2. Ostertag puts it up at the buzzer. No, he didn't get it off in time.
Shot clock violation. That's a shot clock violation.
And Karl Malone will come back into the game for Utah and the next whistle.
Utah playing big stretches without its two main weapons. Without Karl Malone, without Jeff Hornacek. Now Malone is back in. They come with their small lineup. Utah does. Karl directly over to David Robinson. Tugs on that elbow sleeve a little bit and says, now I'm ready.
Malone 7 of 13 from the floor in the first quarter for 16 points. Robinson and Malone fouled him. And strongly disagrees.
David Robinson was telling us yesterday how much more difficult it is to play against the shorter, smaller, quick guys. It's the same problem that Akeem Olajuwon is happening in the other Western series. Karl Malone always reaches in and pops down. And there's another call. Karl now with 2 fouls.
Robinson now 2 out of 4 from the free throw line, and here comes Hornacek. He comes on to replace Carr.
And they're going even smaller, Utah is, trying to play with quickness. Antoine Carr, even though the numbers aren't there, he's a vast contributor to this team.
And a foul called on Chuck Person. That's number 2 on Person.
For Antoine Carr played on the Spurs. That's Chuck Person right there. But Antoine Carr played on the Spurs the only time these two teams met previously in the playoffs in '94.
This one called down on the baseline. That's Sean Elliott, and that's his second.
Both teams would do themselves a big favor by just ignoring the refs. Don't try to influence them. These refs are going to do their job regardless of what the players argue about.
So Elliott with a couple of words for Jess Percy takes a seat on the bench, and Monty Williams, second-year man out of Notre Dame, onto the floor.
Robinson still without a foul, but Sean Elliott is a critical element in the Spurs' offensive attack, particularly in the set offense.
Russell. Brian Russell has been a big factor in the Utah bench, having outscored San Antonio's bench 69-43 in the first 2 games coming in here.
Brian is like Chris Morris, is a very athletic player, the type of player that Utah has not had in the past. That's a good block.
Real short.
Blocked by Stockton.
Stockton back for 3. Hit the back rim. Tries to hustle it down. And the quick pass just out of the reach of Adam Keefe.
Watching John Stockton play is so much fun. It's a game of quickness. And who is quicker than him? His ability to deliver the ball.
Johnson drew the foul going down the lane. That one looks like it'll go against Brian Russell. And we'll take time with 6:16 to play. In the first half, Utah 39, the Spurs 27. You're watching the NBA on NBC.
Well, Greg, the Jazz made an interesting decision before this game today. They did have their usual starting small forward, David Benoit, available to play today. He's missed the first 2 games of the series with a contusion of his left knee suffered during the Portland series. However, Benoit and Jerry Sloan sat down before
do it again. Bring him on out to the gym.
Greg, you were talking about Chuck Person behind the three-point line and the great rhythmic shooting. Adam Keefe not doing a good job defensively here. You got to stay close to this guy. He's one of the greatest shooters of all time. He runs by him. Now, this is what Seattle is doing perfectly against Houston. Closing out on spot-up shooters on the perimeter. Adam Keefe not doing the job done. You see Chuck Person there, third in the all-time list behind Dale Ellis and Reggie Miller. Adam Keefe, who just signed a brand new 5-year contract. Utah may want to think about pulling that one back after he doesn't play defense on a shooter like Person.
Only the first half.
Well, redheads are held to a higher standard.
Jane Russell will be pleased to hear. 48-38, the Jazz by 10. 2:25 to play in the first half.
Speaking of redheads, we do have Dave Cowens here, who never had trouble closing out.
Robinson.
David Robinson.
So David Robinson, with just 6 points so far this afternoon, cuts the Utah lead to 8.
Utah should be very careful about not having Karl Malone pick up his third foul in the last 2 minutes of the half.
Hornacek, top of the key, doesn't fall. Robinson rebounds.
Hornacek is shooting 63% from behind the line in all the playoffs this year.
Robinson steps back and hits again. So David Robinson catching fire as we wind down the first half. It's down to a 6-point lead for Utah. Jerry Sloan calling out the play, as he does each and every time Utah comes down the court. Russell going to look down to Keefe. And Robinson with another rebound again. David Robinson getting it done at both ends. Johnson for Williams. He missed the layup.
Make a shot. You got Adam Keefe and Monty Williams missing very easy shots.
And Malone will go to the line. Monty Williams commits the foul at this end.
Monty Williams his second.
That's a tough back and forth down the court.
Well, do something one time, a layup. You learn how to do this when you're in 4th grade. How about a left-handed layup? It's great to see Karl Malone and John Stockton. I mean, obviously they're going to the Hall of Fame. They'll be playing in Atlanta for Dream Team in this year's Olympics. But these are two guys who are really non-factors at the collegiate level.
Want to remind the folks this Thursday is huge on NBC, the season finale of all your favorite must-see TV Thursday comedies, plus the season finale of ER. Mark your calendar, plan on watching the season finales on must-see TV, NBC Thursday.
Back in the early 80s when Stockton and Malone were in college, those two and Charles Barkley were cut from the '84 Olympic team to keep guys like Jeff Turner and Steve Alford.
49-42, 1 minute to play, first half. Avery Johnson barking out signals. Del Negro. And Malone with a rebound.
Jeff Hornacek in transition.
Stockton. And now Malone.
Nice closeout defense.
Malone. 21 in the first half for Karl Malone. He comes in averaging 26.4 for the postseason. An offensive foul on Johnson.
It has not gone right for Avery Johnson, the emotional leader of the Spurs, the guy that said the prayer in the locker room before the match today, talking about how the Spurs are so much better as underdogs, and now they're underdogs once again after losing game 1. Avery with the challenge of his life right here as Charles Smith checks in, but Avery playing against John Stockton. I mean, with Magic Johnson, with Isaiah, with Cousy, right up there in the history of all-time great point guards. Avery Johnson trying to make a dent.
15 seconds. Stockton on the pull-up. Malone with 2 seconds. Morris for 3. No.
And the first half and the Jazz 51.
Not a bad first half Robinson, 8 points, 6 rebounds. Karl Malone, 21 and 6. The Jazz 51, the Spurs 42. Back with the Prudential halftime report right after this. Elliott. In and out.
Spurs, as they started the game, tentative. Critical for Utah not to get conservative offensively.
Hornacek. 55-42.
Utah's got athletic players that can match up with Sean Elliott in transition and on the perimeter. Stockton poking that ball away, but with guys like Chris Morris, with Brian Russell, Hornacek working the three-man game. Karl Malone comes down, sets a good bump. Vinny Del Negro, who spends his life coming off screens, can't get it done defensively.
Shot clock at 9. And Del Negro chooses the baseline and finds Malone there. Out of bounds, off Del Negro.
San Antonio is rattled. When was the last time you ran an isolation play for Vinny Del Negro? You're going to isolate somebody, isolate Sean Elliott, isolate Avery Johnson or David Robinson. Karl Malone with the enthusiastic response.
55-42 Utah.
Just again another example of that out hustling that Bob Hill was talking about.
Felton Spencer. And a big rebound by Elliott. Spurs looking for someone to jumpstart their engine here in the second half.
It's so difficult because the Spurs game, their engine, Greg, is transition offense, fast break. And Utah plays such a pattern game offensively, they don't create opportunities that they're going to call.
That's Stockton. Everyone started to walk to the other end.
Well, the referee pointed in the opposite direction, a momentary state of confusion.
It's number 3 on Stockton. Robinson. So David Robinson gets his 9th and 10th points, and it's 55-44.
Now they've taken Robinson off Karl Malone. Charles Smith guarding him now.
And Charles Smith just knocked John Stockton to the floor with a big shoulder.
It's the absolute same thing that happened in game 2 in San Antonio. Stockton loves to run this shuffle off, and that lean in and that bump, that is totally uncalled for. It's one thing to step over and bump the cutters, but you do it with your body movement, not a lean and a thrust of the elbow and the shoulder. Charles Smith already had a conversation with Rod Thorne about that swing that he took the other night.
And a blocking foul on Charles Smith. Upset with the call, and that's 4 on Smith. And here comes Will Perdue.
Charles Smith sliding along. Very little contact there. Don't really.
Nice hold by Chapman. Tip. Yes. And the rejection by Cadillac Anderson. MJ between them all. He got every one of them.
Today is gonna be the day that they're gonna throw it back to you.
Got a 3-on-1, 3-on-2 goal rush. Huge advantage. Oh, there it's Cliff Robinson going to the hole. Here's the ball to Magic. Gives it back to Ballard. Dribble underneath. Reverse. Oh, come on. Short. It seems 3-on-2. Edney to the trailer. Watson. Oh, my God.
Live action and take it away, Salt Lake City.
Hornacek, no. Rebound, Del Negro. And Malone comes up from behind and taps it out of bounds.
You ever wonder how hard it must be for Karl Malone to get to sleep after a game? He likes the day games. You look at him charging, banging into the scores table. There's Ron Boone, one of the great players in ABA history. Also had a solid NBA career with the Lakers. Does the color analyst for Hot Rod Huntley in the Jazz broadcast.
Del Negro, far side. And a whistle underneath. And this will go against the Spurs. Will Purdue.
And again, now they're coming in with Isley right now. Stockton will go to the bench. This is all part of their master plan. I mean, their rotations are so predictable. He comes out, he'll sit for a couple minutes, then he'll come back in, and Karl Malone, they never want to play without Malone or Stockton at any time in a big game.
7.5 to play in the third.
San Antonio's set offense is horrible today. And coming in against Utah, that's what you got to play. That's where your pre-game preparation has to come from.
Spencer. Felton Spencer. 61-44. And the steal by Morris. And foul by Elliott. The Spurs just can do nothing right.
They've scored 2.
Isley goes down low to Malone. Travel violation on Hardisett.
It's the same defense that Seattle is using against Houston. They're just forcing guys as they move up with the double team, shuffle their feet right up in guys' faces, and got to keep that ball in the triple threat position.
Bill and Hannah and I will be in Houston tomorrow afternoon as the Rockets try to stay alive against the Seattle Sonics. Purdue off the feed from Avery Johnson.
One of the few times today that Avery Johnson has been able to create some sort of offensive flow. Notice how it's happening when John Stockton's on the bench.
Utah. Robinson on Malone. Fadeaway. Oh, Malone has everything working today. 27 points.
You could just see that coming. The way he threw David off him right at the beginning of the play. The off arm to clear him out. This has been very one-sided. Almost reminiscent of last year when Akeem and David Robinson were going at it in the conference finals.
Jerry Sloan protests the call that Jess Kersey made. An illegal defense call on Felton Spencer.
Carl just determined to get this shot up. Fake one way, go the other, and get in the air. No excessive fakes. Terrific offensive strategy in the low post. It always helps when you can make your fadeaway jumper, too. That helped Kevin McHale a lot.
Sean Elliott scores his first point since the first quarter. These teams will do battle in Game 4 tomorrow night here in the Delta Center. That game comes your way at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time on TNT. John Stockton catching his breath on the bench. 5:40 to play in the third. 63-47 Jazz.
And the back-to-back games, I think, with both teams in very good health. This is a team in Utah that has not had any injury problems all year.
Robinson will go to the line.
Player of the Year award in the NBA this year. The only times in the NBA that he hasn't won it, Dennis Rodman won it 1 year and Akeem won it 1 year. David also, of course, first team All-League on the All-League defense
for the 4th time. 3 times on the second team. Not bad for a 7-year player. Isley in the lane.
"17-point game here in San Antonio, showing no signs of improved set offense. They've got 6 points in the third quarter. Adjustments not made appropriately at halftime.
Avery Johnson skips over the basket, but Purdue is there for the putback. 8 for Will Purdue.
Will Purdue has become their most productive player. Here's a guy who's crashing the offensive boards, finishing off dunks, moving without the ball.
And This one is on illegal defense call. Let's go back and watch Malone and David Robinson.
Well, David's trying to deny position, but you see him, he's just a second late on the first play. And Carl initiating that contact the way that great offensive players do. Jabbar, they hit you first. Bird, Magic, Jordan, they all come at you. They bump you first, and then you're behind, and you can never catch up.
Coming up on 4.5 to play here in the third. Malone. 29 for Karl Malone.
Carl pounds his chest and says, bring it my way. My game today.
Chuck Person. And Morris with the rebound.
Utah's role players are doing just that. They're playing within the system. They're letting Karl Malone and John Stockton dictate the big plays, and they're coming up with all the little stuff.
Isley finds a way to the basket.
That's just terrible defense. They have to take a timeout now.
Listen to this crowd. And 8 by the Utah Jazz.
Too much is made of that, Greg, because it's more a matter of style. In those games down in San Antonio, Utah was settling for the perimeter jumper, like they do right here.
Chris Morris, 72-52, 20-point lead.
The amazing thing about the free throws, though, is that Karl Malone did not take a single free throw in Game 2. I don't think he's ever played an NBA game who's done that. Terrific defense by Malone again.
That's out of bounds to San Antonio. And Karl still on the floor. Karl said he had to go all the way back to high school to remember a game that he hadn't attempted a free throw. Spurs ball. The bad news for the Spurs is Malone says he's fine.
Karl Malone and John Stockton, if you're waiting for them to get hurt, you're gonna don't hold your breath. Double foul.
And a 20-second timeout.
Oh, excuse me.
The Jazz, a 20-second.
The game if need be, Greg.
All right, Hannah, thanks. And whistle blows. This will be an offensive foul on the Spurs.
Offensive foul, number 45.
Karl Malone, who's just been all over the place during the playoff, takes a wild swing and then gets overextended, and when he comes stumbling down, he'll land right on that shoulder, and Karl is on his way to the locker room.
Greg Anderson on the floor now for the Spurs. Hornacek loses it. Sean Elliott for 2. The Spurs out there now with Elliott, Del Negro, Corey Alexander, Chuck Person, and Greg Anderson.
What about the Jazz? Neither team's a team, with the exception of Hornacek, Del Negro, and Sean Elliott.
Isley. And Keefe hits the deck, and a loose ball foul on Chuck Person. The basket counts.
Chuck Person trying to take things
And
over
a technical.
He's out of here. He's out of here.
You know, you don't see Chuck Person get angry this often, this angry.
But he's angry that his team is getting spanked right now. He's trying to change the momentum here. He's trying to get physical. There's a little pop right there by Isley the first time. They called a foul on Chuck Person on that play, and then Adam Keefe has the good position. Really almost a flop there. Didn't look like Chuck did much of anything.
And Bennett Salvatore says, see ya, have a nice afternoon. And you really don't see Chuck Person get angry like that.
Absolutely not. And he's a true professional who comes out, and it's meant so much to Bob Hill's team. But now they've got to come in with Carl Herrera. We're talking about not the A team in there. I mean, we saw Monty Williams early in this game. Now Carl Herrera. Bob Hill searching for something. David Robinson on the bench next to Avery Johnson.
Again, Doc Rivers not with the club, seeing a doctor in Atlanta for lower back spasms. Sean Elliott with the fake to the baseline. And around and out and a rebound by Elliott, who will go to the line.
Points.
David Robinson averaging almost 29 a game in the postseason.
David Robinson's second in the NBA. You look at the three guys here, Elliott, Johnson, and David Robinson. That's where you got to get points. Sean Elliott just 4 since the opening quarter.
Hornacek. Utah just rolling now. 22 is the lead.
Antoine Carr, has he scored today and they're double teaming him in the low post?
That shot is good. Antoine Carr has not scored this afternoon. Minute and a half to play.
But with the lineup that Bob Hill has gone with the team down 20 in the game again tomorrow night, that's just, you know, a factor of guys not being used to playing, not being tuned into what the team needs to do.
Shot clock at 4. Carr into the lane. Anderson with the rebound. This is Herrera.
Such hesitation. Granted, Herrera doesn't play much, but
Elliott batted out of bounds, and Spurs ball. Let's check in with him.
Well, checking in with Karl Malone in the locker room, the official report is he strained the biceps in his right shoulder. He will be able to come back in the game, but how he actually did it, Greg, is he was going for a block, and his finger actually got caught on the rim of the net, and that's how he hurt his shoulder. But they're still looking at him back in the locker room. He says he'll be back in the game if they need him, Greg.
All right, Anna, thank you.
we had the bicep report in Showtime this morning, and obviously it's come down to that.
Amazing how that comes full circle, isn't it, Bill?
The wheel is turning.
Meanwhile, Sean Elliott now with a cut. He goes to the bench, and Monty Williams comes in.
If John Anderson can't get you better, there's something really wrong with you. That guy is absolutely one of the best.
So now it's Anderson, Herrera, Alexander, Del Negro, and Monty Williams on the floor for the Spurs.
Just a wild throw up there.
Final 40 seconds of the third quarter. And whistle blows. Corey Alexander.
Karl Malone, Jerry Sloan, John Stockton, yesterday they all talked about, hey, defense. Our team is about defense, and they have played it today. They've held the Spurs to 58 points. The Spurs against San Antonio.
Antonio led 25-9 after the first quarter, and then Utah outscored San Antonio 29-11 in the second and led at halftime by 2.
Nice defense here, forcing guys like Carl Herrera to handle the ball in the perimeter where he's not comfortable at all.
20 seconds to play. And 8 on the shot clock. Alexander. Keith with the rebound. Hornacek for 3. Hornacek with 10 of his 17 here in the third. And Alexander doesn't get it off in time. Jeff Hornacek came into this game shooting better than 63% from the floor behind the three-point line. He has 17. Karl Malone in the locker room with 29.
Today they've outscored their opponents by an average of 7 points per game in those fourth quarters.
Utah shooting a blistering 72% in the third quarter to just 29 for San Antonio. Credit Del Negro with the block there. Robinson with the rebound. Elliott back on the floor along with David Robinson and Avery Johnson, and a nice pass to Corey Alexander.
Very small lineup here for San Antonio. They've got to start gambling. They got to up this tempo. Karl Malone's playing with his elbow sleeve in his mouth.
And David Benoit is on the floor for the first time in 3 games with the bad left knee wrapped.
They're going to give him an opportunity. Oh, come on.
Russell had the rebound.
Look at the job that the Jazz have done in improving over the years their athleticism, adding guys like Benoit, Brian Russell, Chris Morris.
It's kicked out of bounds by the Spurs.
Getting Felton Spencer to lose that 30 pounds that he was carrying around, trying to be a big bruising, pushing guy. Ostertag comes in, loses some weight from college.
Malone and Stockton go back to work. Robinson steps out and then drops back. Shot clock is down to 10.
Malone against Elliott.
And Robinson comes over to help out and bats it out of bounds, and the shot clock is at 6.
Jazz ball out of bounds, 6 seconds. Shot clock, 6 seconds.
6 on the shot clock.
Benoit. And now Malone off the baseline. Is there. Every bounce this afternoon has gone the way of the Jazz.
It will not be a pleasant day for San Antonio to have to listen to Bob Hill talk about being out hustled all day.
Malone blocked and fouled by Robinson.
Pounding the boards, clutch performance down the stretch.
And 3 games coming your way tomorrow. We will be in Houston. Malone. Around and out. Malone with 30 points today. 84-60.
Can't walk backwards on your free throw and expect it to go down.
Elliott. Sean Elliott.
Sean Elliott.
15 for Elliott.
San Antonio going to their gambling scramble defense. Have to do something to disrupt the patient offensive execution that has been precision today for Utah.
Utah with a slight edge on the boards. Stockton. Avery Johnson came flying out of nowhere to commit the foul. And we'll take time with 9:50 to play. The Spurs go to Bob Hill looking for answers. He may not have one. In the NBA, the all-time leader, John Stockton, 2 years ago against the Spurs in the playoffs. Stockton notched another mark in his resume with an NBA playoff record, 11 assists in 1 quarter. The Jazz won the game and took the series in 4. In recognition of that moment, Miller Brewing Company donates $1,000 to the Thurgood Marshall Scholarship Fund. John Stockton ranks number 2 all-time in assists in playoffs, 1,071. Magic way up there.
Magic played in almost 100 more playoff games than John Stockton has.
Brian Russell out of the corner.
Speaking of Magic, Brian Russell played a lot of basketball when he was growing up in Los Angeles there with Magic Johnson.
Foul called on the play. We're talking about John Stockton. Bill, that man had a lot to do with John Stockton being here.
Hall of Famer Jack Gardner, former coach of University of Utah, also Kansas University. Jack has been a consultant for the Jazz for many, many years. He was the man that found John Stockton when Stockton was playing for Gonzaga up there in Spokane. Stockton never played in the NCAA tournament.
Go out and find a guy like John Stockton. Kind of earned your keep, haven't you? 87-64 Utah. The Jazz looking to grab a 2-1 lead in this best-of-7 series. Game 4 tomorrow night.
And the Spurs, don't forget, Greg, have never won a series where they've lost the first game, which they did in this series. They're 0-14 lifetime when they've lost the first game.
Alexander. And Malone with the rebound and hits the deck again. Here come the Jazz.
Now the patience, the execution, work the clock. I think the biggest concern right now is that for Utah, when you play this well in one day, and they are playing perfect today, it's so hard to come down after a game like this. But the turnaround, the quick turnaround, they're going to have a hard time. They're going to be feeling great tonight when they go home. But they got to put it behind them and get down and come back and play better tomorrow, because San Antonio, they will come out with fire and revenge tomorrow on their mind.
Sean Elliott. And that one tapped out of bounds, and it'll belong to Utah. I want to remind you, Sunday, Tom Cruise, Jack Nicholson, Demi Moore star in the network premiere of A Few Good Men. Great movie.
I've seen that one too. I see all of Nicholson's movies too.
Sunday at 8, 7 Central on NBC. Anytime an Army big shot is going to get his comeuppance, I'm tuning in, Bill.
Anytime Jack Nicholson comes on TV, I sit down and watch.
New 24 for the Jazz. Alone. Shoulders feeling fine.
Offensive execution. The man that sets the screen is the guy that gets open. David Robinson has to step back onto John Stockton on the cut through. That allows Karl Malone to be wide open. Standing out of bounds. This has been a horrible offensive day for the entire
Bob Hill knowing how this game is going to go.
Is that 28? How many point spread is that, Rick?
That's 28.
Thank you.
The steal by Alexander. Elliott to Johnson. And Johnson off the mark.
Brian Russell.
And David Benoit with the rebound. If you're the Utah Jazz, Bill, do you like the fact that you're coming right back tomorrow night?
I'd rather have a day off if you're Utah. I think it's easier to come back in this situation if you're San Antonio. They're going to be so mad and so angry, and the Utah Jazz are going to have a hard time coming down from this magnificent opponent. Right
now, there are nothing but looks of disgust on the San Antonio bench. 94-64.
Now,
Del Negro for three.
A lot of time to think about it for the Spurs.
Vinny Del Negro. Just 3 points here in the second half, 9 for the game.
Yeah, we have to give Utah's defense a tremendous amount of credit. Besides the fact that they're shooting the lights out. You look at these forlorn faces here. But Utah's defense, which in the playoffs, 3rd in points allowed, 1st in opponent's field goal percentage.
And an offensive foul. There's Greg Anderson.
There's the bracket. Seattle seriously up on Houston.
And Utah, we're going to assume, is going to claim this one. Meanwhile, in the East, the Bulls lead down to 2-1 over New York, and Orlando with a 2-0 lead over Atlanta after the drubbing last night.
Beautiful pass by Benoit.
Boy, Brian Russell has some fans here in Salt Lake City, doesn't he? Del Negro. Another three.
Del Negro for three.
98-70. Remind you again, these two teams meet again tomorrow night here in Salt Lake City. That game comes your way 8:30 Eastern time on TNT.
Interesting that Bob Hill's got Vinny Del Negro. Vinny's made a couple nice shots here. Obviously, it's too little and too late. But if you're going to let a guy get a rhythm going, why don't you put all the guys in who have all been playing poorly? Not that Vinny played poorly. He just didn't have any opportunities. And Vinny is like Hornacek. He feeds off the stars.
Just under 5 minutes to play now. Anderson on the nice feed. Can't make the layup. Outside to Benoit for three.
The guy hasn't played in a week. That's the kind of day it's been for Utah. Now I can figure that out, but that's a 31-point lead. And now you have to start to think, you know, is this a statement that Utah is this good, as we're starting to see with Seattle playing the game that they are dominating Houston right now?
Carr with the block, and the shot clock expires.
No basket. The shot clock violation.
You know, there's another thing, too. San Antonio does not have much success coming in here to Salt Lake City. They won the 2 regular season games, but with this win, Utah will have beaten the Spurs 23 times in their last 27 meetings here in Salt Lake City.
This year in the regular season, it's the first time that San Antonio ever swept at Utah. They've been in the NBA since 1977. San Antonio has won the 3rd most division titles of all NBA teams since then. But that certainly doesn't seem to help them in this building.
Isley. David Robinson, 11 points today, just 3 in the second half.
What we're seeing right now, Greg, is Utah just punishing the spirit of the Spurs, the same way Seattle has done with Houston, the same way that Orlando has done with Atlanta, in establishing that belief that, hey.
Terry Durham just hit Antoine Carr with a technical for protesting a non-call at the other end.
Somebody should tell an all-time
Utah bench, which again has played extraordinarily well.
And you look at what Utah does. They lead the league in field goal percentage, right up there at the very top in assists per game for a team.
The crowd on its feet for the last 30 seconds. Del Negro for 2.
Del Negro.
And the Jazz will run this one out. 105-75, a most convincing margin of victory. The Jazz shoot 53% from the field for the day. Led by Karl Malone's 32. They grab a 2-games-to-1 lead with a 105-75 win. We'll be back right after this.